And many thanks for joining us again on the program. I am Imoni Amarere. Nigeria appears to be making a major comeback on the global financial stage. After more than 2 years under close international scrutiny, the country has been removed from the Financial Action Task Force's Grey List, the global watch list for nations with strategic deficiencies in fighting money laundering and terrorism financing. This development, announced in October, as just last week, marks a turning point in Nigeria's financial governance story. Being on the grey list since February 2023 raised red flags about the country's financial system, investment environment, and international reputation. It meant tougher checks on Nigerian transactions and greater hesitation from global investors and banks. And to turn that around, Nigeria reportedly embarked on a series of reforms, tightening anti-money laundering laws, improving interagency coordination, strengthening the EFCC and FIU, and enhancing supervision of the financial and non-financial sectors. Financial analysts say the delisting signals renewed global confidence in Nigeria's institutions, governance capacity, and commitment to transparency. Yet, experts warn that this is not the end of the journey. The challenge now is to sustain the reforms, close remaining gaps, and ensure the gains translate into real economic governance dividends for citizens. So on people, politics, and power, we will be asking these questions. What does Nigeria's removal from the FATF Grey List truly mean for the economy, for investors, and the average Nigerian citizen? What reforms made it possible, and can they be sustained? Does this signal a turning point in Nigeria's fight against corruption and financial crimes? And very importantly, how can civil society and the media help ensure transparency and accountability going forward? So we urge you to stay with us as we unpack the politics, the progress, and the implications of Nigeria's exit from the FATF Grey List. Stay with us. We shall get to meet our guest analysts right after this short break. Stay with us.
The Nigeria of our dream, the Nigeria we need, is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's get to meet our guests some of whom are already here in the studio. I have with me here Dr. David Aharuvo, who is a financial policy analyst, an economist, and a forensic auditor, amongst many other things. Thank you so much, Doc, for finding time to join us.
Thank you very much.
Also joining us virtually is Professor Ken Ife. Professor Ife is a developmental economist and a macroeconomic analyst. Prof, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you on once more, sir. Right, we also expect to join us very shortly, Dr. Joy Haruna. He will be right with us here in the studio. All right, so let's begin this way. Prof, let me begin with you. What, for purposes of enlightenment of our viewers out there, what is the Grey List? What is the FATF Grey List? And what does it mean for a country to be on that Grey List and to be taken off that Grey List?
First of all, what is FATF? FATF is a watchdog, is a multilateral watchdog that, you know, works across nations in fighting terrorism financing and other financial crimes, such as money laundering. But remember, in the case of Nigeria, it sounds exotic, but Nigeria, our corruption that is killing the country and our lack of transparency and many other things that happen to Nigeria are actually linked to even our insecurity, the level of our insecurity. They're all linked to this same area of terrorism financing and money laundering. So they're all linked, and even small arms proliferation. So you know what we know is linked to all those. So now they have blacklist and they have gray list. Blacklist is the default list. The gray list is for countries that have embraced them and are strategically looking at what they could do to get out of to come clear and clean and fully recognized. So Nigeria has adopted. I think we had even they have 40 frameworks, 40 major pillars and action points, but then 19 of them were concerned with Nigeria, and then Nigeria eventually overcame those 19 to remove us from their gray list. And then that then means that the door is open for us to access more resources than we normally would have, to have more regulation, more confidence. All of those stuff we will come to. But that is essentially what this list is. The worst part of it is the black list. The medium one is the gray list for those who have committed themselves to an action plan to get out of, to face and bite the bullet. And we have done that, and we have now got all clear. Thank you.
Right. So, Dr. Haruvo, let me come to you and to ask this question. Okay. Nigeria was placed on this list, gray list, yes, in 2023, 2 years ago. Yes. Now, what were the main deficiencies that took Nigeria to that list?
Okay. In 2023, we had the inspection of the FATF, and their discovery is that there are major financing of terrorism. If you remember, UAE sent us a list of terrorists, of sponsors of terrorists. That's one of the major issues. Then, in that case also, our transparencies in dealing with financial transactions was very clumsy. It wasn't clear and it was not transparent. On this basis, they now said, okay, we should be blacklisted, but not to the total. Just as the other party has said, not to the blacklist, but to the gray list, so that we will be able to, they will give us recommendations to follow. Once we follow it and our financial transactions are clear, then they can remove us from there. So the major issue is the terrorism financing. Terrorism financing, then money laundering is the second major one, because there are a lot of financial transactions that were going on. It will not just 2023, right from 2015, from Jonathan time, there are some financial transactions that are not clear. People who are mopping the oil wells and they are not showing in the financial transaction books of the banks. And these are very terrible things, you know, where a man is richer than a country. So all these things, the NFIU, the EFCC, and the CBN are supposed to work on and make sure that recommendations are given and policies are formulated and we stop those things. But it was not stopped until 2023 when the FATF now come into play. In fact, as of now, we are still battling to stop them. So on this basis, I want to make it clear, I want to say that, well, we thank God we are out of it. Any person that is out of chain or out of shackles or prison will be happy. But the issue is, are you really out of the shackles? Are you really doing what you said you have done? And that is what I want us to look at this afternoon.
All right. Before we do that, I mean, as a forensic auditor,
Yes.
how are those transactions that you talk about
Yes.
that were not captured officially, how are they tracked?
Now, what happened is that these people have arrangements with banks. And these banks help them. I worked in central bank before, so I know how it goes. The banks help these criminals to keep their money. But they are not hidden totally from NFIU because all the information through the SWIFTs passes through NFIU. And because there is no integral part, there is no working scheme between the NFIU and the CBN properly that allow forensic audit, they go free. They go scot-free. So, how you can track them is when you engage a knowledgeable forensic auditor to bring them out. All the lists are there, but the second point is, are they willing to do that? Are they not benefiting from it? And if they are, then nobody will do it.
So it boils down to issue of political will to do
Political will to do the right thing. Exactly. But if there are consequences for this thing, if there are private auditors on this, forensic auditors on this, and it is allowed, then they can go to court and produce an evidence. But whose court are you going? That's another question.
Okay.
So all boils down to transparencies and the willingness of the government to do the right thing.
All right, let us welcome Dr. Joel Haruna. Thank you so much, Dr. Haruna, for joining us.
Thank
Dr.
you for
Haruna
having me.
is an economist and a financial analyst. Thank you so much. Now, so let's delve straight into this. We talked about what it is to be on and off the grey list. We have talked about why Nigeria went into that grey list in 2023, 2 years ago, and how we got off it. But how does being on the grey list affect a country's financial credibility and, of course, investment climate?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. Being on a grey list has grave effects for our financial system. It has lots of disadvantages, and that is why any country that finds themselves there, do what they can, to get off that list. October 2025, a few days ago, we came off that list in the FATF conference in Paris. As a country, it affects investors' confidence. That is one of the major problems putting us on a grey list will have on a country. It makes our transaction cost to be very expensive because a whole lot has to be spent on compliance issues. So there are, disadvantages. As a matter of fact, IMF in their report in 2022 said capital inflow it hits our GDP by almost 7.67% of our capital inflow is impacted, on our GDP. So there are lots of disadvantages of being on that grey list. But essentially, what it does to a nation is affecting our financial system, investors' confidence, and also it makes remittances to be a bit difficult. It makes borrowing costs to be high. As a matter of fact, my own personal experience, I wanted to access a mortgage in the UK sometimes last year, while the cost was about 5 to 6%. They were insisting on charging me about 9 to 10%. And when we made inquiries, they said it was because we're on the grey list. So it takes a lot. It takes cost to profile you, to meet with all the relevant compliance issues. And that is why being on the grey list, is not good for us. It's not good for even individuals. It's not good for investors. It's not good for the country as a whole. So this, even our rating, our credit rating, it has recently in May 2025, we moved from CAAI to B. And with this now, it's sure that we're going to also move up on our credit rating. So essentially, getting off the grey list has a whole lot of impact on us as an economy. It has an impact on us as citizens. It has impact on our institutions, the financial institutions and the likes of it.
Some people have argued, Dr. Haruna, that when you talk about investors and the financial system, that some of these investors, not all of them, some of these investors are complicit in the kind of financial fraud that led us into that list. How do you reconcile that with the fact that we want to attract investors? We want to give the impression that the financial system is working and working well. Yet some of these investors, when they get in, they make it very easy for some of these financial crimes to occur.
Yeah, part of the 19-point action plan that was undertaken by the Nigerian government, that got us out of the grey list, included the AML and CFT Counter-Terrorism Act that was established in 2022. Now, in that act, one of the major components is stipulating beneficiary ownership register. That register will tell who is behind every funds, every inflows coming in and out of the country. So it became more difficult for these investors. It has become more difficult for these investors to actually hide, because money comes in various funds, it's being laundered here and there. But now it's a bit difficult because there is now a collaboration within the agencies, NFIU, and other regulatory agencies. And the banks have been cooperating. In fact, they have been forced to cooperate to make those beneficial ownership, available for the various agencies to see who is behind every funds that is coming in and going out of the country. So it is one of the major things that the FATF looked at, and they were able to, take us out of that list. So, when gone are those days when monies came in just without who is the owner of this money, or money is going out and you cannot trace to who the money is going to. The beneficiary ownership register that is now available and is accessible, to all the various, to NFI and all the other agencies, has made it now almost difficult for, investors to come in with those kind of funds, to, come in with launder funds, or to come in funds that, in ways that would not understand how those funds came in. So I think a lot has been done compared to what it used to be before, from all the things that have been put in place now by the NFIU and the various agencies that got us to this point that we are today. So I would say kudos to the Nigerian government, kudos to the NFIU, kudos to all the various regulatory agencies, that put in the work to get us off that list.
Right, Prof. Let me push that a little bit further. A few weeks ago, in fact, I think it was last week or just 2 weeks ago, we discussed the illicit financial flows out of Nigeria. And what we discovered from our research indicated that even in 2024 here, there was something close to between 18 and $20 billion of illicit financial flows out of Nigeria. Is that part of what is captured as financial crimes that put us in on that grey list?
Of course, it's all part of it. And I'm glad that we are out of it. Always thank government for any small step that is taken, and then hope that it will not reverse. One thing I wanted to point out is the dimensions of this framework. One is it needs you to enact enabling laws, which we have done. Because in the same 2022, we enacted the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022. We also enacted Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022. But it goes beyond enacting those laws to actually looking at the regulations, because the regulation tells you how to implement the law. And then goes beyond that to look at the institutional framework. And then in the institutional framework, of course, you have the EFCC, you have the ICPC, you have the the task force itself, and then the central bank and all that. It talks about the institutional framework and then goes beyond the institutional framework to actually look at the capacity, the technical capacity of these institutions. That is their capacity to detect the crime, to analyze it, to prosecute very complex financial crime, because this is financial, it's very, very complex. So it looks at the technical and organizational capacities and make sure that they are up to speed. Then it also looks at the process, because the process of supervision is they prefer risk-based supervision. And a central bank that supervises the banks every month, it adopts in part of their prudential guidelines, it's very elaborate, but you have the risk-based supervision where the bank goes with the NDIC as well, to look at these institutions on a monthly basis. So risk-based supervision also means that you are constantly looking at the risks around this, and then quantifying the risk, identifying the risk, and then mapping them, creating tables, allocating risks, and all of that. So it is down right at the process itself. And so it's not just, we've done it, tomorrow they reverse. No, there are various levels in the implementation of this.
Right. In the course of this discussion, Prof, we have had to mention the institutions of government that have been involved in this. We have talked about the NFIU, the EFCC, the central bank, and possibly the finance ministry. What roles have all these institutions, or are there any more than those that I have mentioned now? What specific roles have these institutions played in getting us delisted, getting Nigeria delisted?
No, definitely. I mean, I just mentioned the central bank with their prudential guidelines and very, very strict risk-based supervision, which they do alongside the NDIC, because in the end of the day, NDIC is going to pick up the bill. If a bank collapses, then the depositors, they will give them 50% of the deposits that they have. And then also remember that the two core mandates of the central bank is price stability and then financial system stability. So they use those risk-based supervision and all the indices to monitor banks, and then also ensure that even now that the bank, CBN, has opened up to other financial institutions like microfinance banks, a lot of them, there are over 1,000, 2,000 microfinance banks. But the act, the 2020 Act, actually widened the power of the central bank to effectively supervise all those institutions. But you can't leave off SEC, though, because Security and Exchange Commission also plays a good part, because they forget that they are the ones responsible with mandates on these cryptocurrency things and all kinds of other funding coming from long-term funding coming in from abroad and anywhere else. So they also have a role to play, as well as the traditional security agencies that are important, and the directorates of defense information, all those, including, of course, EFCC and ICPC. So all of these institutions, and even the foreign one too, they all take part. Our foreign agency too, they're all involved. But who sits in the middle is the Nigerian NFIU, because the information flows into NFIU, and the NFIU distributes that information to various agencies, security agencies and financial agencies. And if you remember, there was I think about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, no, I think 6 years ago, there was a tension on where to locate NFIU. And I remember EFCC was fighting that battle, and they wanted to come out of EFCC and be independent. And then I think eventually they said, well, somebody still needs to supervise you. So I think it's now central bank that supervises them. But their central point is that they didn't want information that comes to them to be massaged by, an agency that is that has some kind of latitude. But anyway, that's all part of it. Now we have them standing independent, but CBN overlooks, and then you have them effectively distributing the information as soon as they receive them and act on them.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Dr. David, that leads me to my next question, which is the reforms that have led to this delisting. Yes. Was it driven by what I would call national commitment, or by pressures, external pressures from that would ultimately protect Nigeria's image? Or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both, but a lot more percentage to external pressure. Without the external pressure, it has been coming for a very long time. But when the external pressure comes, the government has no choice than to submit to it, because otherwise they won't be able to borrow. Just as my partner here said, they won't be able to do much of the businesses, and they will lose confidence. The investors will lose confidence in the Nigerian financial system. But ultimately, and most importantly, is what we take forward. And what we take forward is very, very important, because the combination of this team, the EFCC, the central bank, and the NFIU, need to work together. And in the need to work together, they need to formulate a policy to be sure that the banks are thoroughly checked. NFIU will release the results of his thrifts every day as it is for the CBN to be able to plan its monitoring system. Otherwise, money will still be going under without knowing. Now, when I was in CBN, I discovered that our system of checking does not go too deeply into the foreign currencies. We're only checking loans and advances, all those things and all that. But we need to hit the nostro accounts of all the banks, know what is going on. Then whatever NFIU will give to us as suspicious transactions, we need to also be checked in detail and know where the money is coming from, know what its purpose is, and be able to give a clean bill of health to such money, otherwise confiscated. Now, you talk about 18 billion that was taken away. Dollars. And I'm aware of that there are such money that NFIU reported. But up till now, no such thing has ever been prosecuted or brought out in a plain terms to say, okay, this money, we have found out what they are meant for. This is where they are coming from. This is what it is, what is their purpose, and it is clean or not clean. And such money can finance our budget to a very reasonable large extent. You know, the investors from outside, as you said, when they come in, anytime they come in and they want to preferage or they want to instigate us to do evil in our financial system, is because they have the chance in our laws. They have the opportunity in our laws. So if the opportunity in our laws can be closed up with integrity and sincerity of purpose, then we can be safe. And it is not just because we are out now, but if we don't do the needful and get standby forensic auditors on a regular basis to check these things, we will fall into it again. Because in the financial system, it's like trying to catch a fish. When you put your net here, once he sees the net, he will divert. So every financial criminal has the opportunity of looking for another way of doing his business.
Dr. Haruna, it's obvious that interagency collaboration was very key to this delisting. The question is, this process that was embarked upon that has led to this result, how sustainable is it? What needs to be done to keep us out of that list so that we don't fall back into that list?
Yes, the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, they're aware that when countries are giving clean bill of health, you know, they could go back and sit down and relax. And that is why in their laws, in their operations, there's usually a 12-month post-observation period. So now that we have been cleared out of the grey list, the task force is going to be monitoring us for the next 12 months. So it is not as if they are just going to take their hands off completely. There's going to be intense monitoring for it's called the post-observation period for 12 months. If any of the things that were put in place before we were taken off, if it's found that it's being compromised, will be relisted again after 12 months. So all the things, the 19-point agenda that was put together by the Nigerian government that took us out of this list has to be sustained, or else will be relisted. The FATF will not hesitate in relisting us after the 12-month observation period if we do not continue on those 19-point action points, if we don't look at them critically to ensure that everything that was done there, we're going to monitor it, the collaboration, even the monitoring of the non-banks FI, that is also very essential. The BDCs, because they were one of the major culprits of where these funds are being laundered, and you know, so there are intense monitoring of non-bank financial institutions now by the CBN. All those things will have to continue, or else in a matter of time we'll be relisted again, and we'll be back with all the woes that comes with, you know, putting us on the grey list. So the various agencies know that these things is like a probation. We are like on a 12-month probationary period. So we cannot afford to relapse in ensuring that all the things that were put in place must, you know, they must continue to monitor them and make sure that we don't get back into that list.
So let's drive this home to the ordinary Nigerian. What does this listing mean for the Nigerian economy and the average citizen?
Absolutely. Like I just told you now, getting inflows into the country has been very difficult. Have you ever tried to open an account in the UK or in America?
Abroad.
It's a lot of problem. You come under intense scrutiny. These scrutinies have been because of the fact that we've been on the grey list. So any transactions that you're doing, you come under intense scrutiny. And it becomes more expensive because there are, you know, the cost of compliance. So these are the issues. Now you want to take a loan, you know, they'll start checking a whole lot of things. They will start checking your status, they start going into your history, they start checking all the various lists, the black list, the blue list, to ensure that you are not there. So all these things add to the cost. You know, ordinarily, if you are not on those lists, it becomes easier to do most of those things. Now, in terms of remittances, you know, trade remittances or even FDI remittances or cash inflow, a transaction that normally should take 24 to 48 hours will take about a week, because that transaction is going through various levels of scrutiny before the transaction is allowed to go through. So if you're a Nigerian or even a business, you know, incorporated, and you're expecting funds that ordinarily should come in 24 hours, you see it coming in a week, because it's going through various levels of scrutiny. And in that process, the transaction cost is also higher, because they are spending money on compliance, on checking one or two things, you know, about that transaction. So these are the effects. It has effects on us as individuals. It has effects on us as a country. It has effects on businesses. So, getting us on this grey list, getting us out of this grey list is a big deal. And I think that the the various agencies that were responsible must stay on top of their game to ensure that we do not go back to it. It's going to save us a whole lot of cost. It's going to save us a whole lot of embarrassment. It's going to add to our credibility and also improve our credit rating.
Right. So, Prof, let me ask you a two-pronged question. One is how this development might influence foreign direct investment, FDI, and how the current momentum that we appear to be enjoying can be used to strengthen our domestic financial integrity and public trust.
Well, for a start, insecurity plays a very major role in the minds of foreign direct investors. Because don't forget, foreign portfolio investors are just sending in their money, ready to take it out within a year or 2 years at the most. And then they are watching the exchange rates. They're seeing once there's stability in the exchange rates and it's favorable, they borrow money at 3-4% abroad. They bring it in here to collect 18% on our treasury bills or 10% on our dollar-denominated foreign euro bond. So they're just watching the financial system. They're not impacted as much as FDI. FDI looks far deeper into, because it has a longer-term view of your economy. So they take very seriously issues around insecurity. And this AML, money laundering and all that, are actually impacting security, because these are the areas where insecurity gets their breathing the oxygen, you know. So that's why it's very important to domestic economy, because we are not benefiting from foreign direct investment. So we need more inflow. And also, don't forget, when companies sit down to make decisions, it is something that they also look at when they're making decisions. The transaction costs that my colleague has highlighted, and also the other collateral costs, because you also have so many things working against you, infrastructure, paucity of infrastructure, so many high cost of transportation, high cost of this, high cost of, and then added to it is the risk of the money associated with their money and the transaction costs. Then secondly, the government borrows a lot cheaper. Because, we have issues about borrowing. We are borrowing a lot of money. And that money will now be a lot cheaper because of all these reasons. You could get a lot more patient capital. You get a lot more concessionary rates, lowered rates being charged to our foreign borrowing. And of course, private companies also borrow. It's not just for the Nigerian government alone. Nigerian companies borrow abroad for some investment. So they also will have a better regime of inflows that are less expensive and with less transaction costs. So in all probability, and don't forget again, we are an import-dependent economy too. So we're doing a lot of foreign buying, and that also speaks volume of how we're going to have to look at the freedom from terrorism financing going forward. We also have to look at could they have an impact on continental free trade and our new payment system that is coming in. We'll have to see how that plays out too, because we want to utilize that a little more to do our business with our member state, but provided we have something to export. I'm not sure we have something to export right now. We are still importing and exporting raw material, exporting our jobs and importing poverty.
Dr. David, again, I come back to the home front.
Thank you.
What lessons does this offer for other governance and anti-corruption reforms in Nigeria?
The lesson is teaching us, it's very, very important, that whoever is in government should try to be as transparent as anything. Because without transparency, you can't be very accountable. You won't be able to account for what you are doing without transparency. So we need to be very transparent, and it is only in transparency that you can come out with a true and actual statistics. And when you come with a true and actual statistic, it's just like somebody that goes to a doctor, and instead of telling the doctor that, oh, I'm having stomach pain, you tell him that you are having a headache, and he will give you a tablet for headache, and you are gone. So the best thing is, let us be transparent at every point in time of our accountability. And let's show that if this government is truly serious about fighting corruption and terrorism financing, they should start from the list that came from UAE. Otherwise, the list is known, it's available. Let everybody see, let them be brought to book, and it will stop others from following suit. Because without us making an example of criminals, we will, and just as the Prof have said, without taming the bandits, investment will be difficult. Foreign investors will not come in. So we need to start taming, destroying totally the root of financing terrorism. Once we finish with that, then we'll come home and we'll be able to invite the financiers. Then our teeming population of unemployed graduates will now be able to be employed, because by then there will be more industries. The graduates will have job. Then our importation will be reduced. Then the foreign exchange, our own currency will be strengthened. Then our own dependence on dollars will be reduced. These are the actions that government need to take so that we can have a sustainable benefit to both the public and the private sectors.
Dr. Haruna, still talking about lessons that can be learned or should be learned. We know that for so long we have had issues with our procurement processes. I mean, domestically, we have had issues with our procurement processes. We have had issues with revenue collection and even with election financing. Is this FATF a model that can be internalized to deal with issues like this?
Yeah, I think just like Doctor said earlier, the pressure, that got us from this list was more of the external pressures. And so the model that FATF runs, is such that if we adopt the same, it will really help. I've been following events with what our fiscal authorities have been doing, and I will say that a whole lot is being done in that space, actually. The budgets, the procurement laws are being strengthened, and some of those things that happen, because a whole lot of monies are lost through the procurement process. You see budget padding and a whole lot of things. Jobs that could be done for 1 billion, you see it's quoted for 20 billion, and the money passes and money moves into various pockets. This is usually the origin where you have those kind of monies that have been taken out of the system. People start looking for ways and means to get it out of the country. So if our procurement system is strengthened, some of these things, it becomes more and more difficult. You talked about the election financing. Well, the laws are there, the laws are there. The question to ask is the implementation, the political will to implement. Because facts, the law is clear on how much is expected to be expended on elections. But some of the expenditures are things that could be tracked. Mm-hmm. If you go, say, okay, media expenses, for example, when you go to the various media houses, you can tell how much a particular candidate has spent on media campaign, for example. So the actual spendings can actually be tracked. And then if all those things are tracked and questions are asked, yes, this is the guideline, this is the boundary. You have spent so and so, you have spent so and so, you have spent so. How come you are now breaching these guidelines? And one of the things that we're doing in the tax reform is actually going to help, because the new tax reform that is going to take effect from January 2026 is going to make it difficult for you to hide all those kind of expenditures. You know, I'm particularly excited about what the committee has done and the fact that that thing has been gazetted. It will be difficult. The kind of intelligence that has been put in place to track flow of funds, it will be almost impossible for people to get away with those kind of spending. It will be impossible for the elites who have been evading tax and hiding funds. It will be difficult because the kind of AI, the kind of things that have been put in place to track all those things, it will be hard.
Again, it comes back to the question of political will.
Absolutely.
Is it going to be foolproof?
Absolutely.
Can these things be done as expected, as prescribed?
That's exactly what I want to say.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, let him conclude, then I'll come back to you.
Yes. So the political will has always been the challenge, you know. Where there's a will, you will see the impact. Look at what is going on in FRS. The funds that are being collected today, are you telling me that we didn't have this level of funds in the past? But you see some will and, you know, some work is being put in place. And that's why we're seeing the kind of money that we're seeing these days. These funds that have been, you know, that FRS is shunning out, probably would have even earned much more than this, even in the past. But I believe I'm an incredible optimist that things will get better in this country. So with time, and with all the things that have been put in place, we're going to see an improvement to that. But the political will must continue, you know, to persist for us to be able to get, you know, to a good end.
Dr. David,
yes,
I know. You know, the Nigerians are known to be very smart,
very clever, very clever,
and have they have the capacity to circumvent any law
one of the major factors in auditing and forensic audit particularly is that anything can be circumvented once there is connivance. Because usually jobs are segregated in parts. Oh, you take care of this so that this one will not be able to do this. You take care of this so that this one. I normally like to speak market women's English. Please permit me.
Go ahead.
So that other people, could hear. I don't want to be using forensic or economic slang jargons. Now, if jobs are distributed like that, and you get to a place and they say, oh, we can't allow this to go, the human beings concerned, let us connive like this, let us allow this to go and keep this for ourselves. Self-interest first. Once Nigerians leave self-interest, we will be able to say, okay.
And put the national interest.
We'll put the national interest
ahead
of our own personal interest. Then we'll be able to do things transparently. Now, once that is done, we're good to go. Sorry, let me talk about the FIRS churning out money, but I hope that the impact of devaluation of Naira was what my brother is seeing on that. Because the devaluation of Naira, all the oil tax and petroleum tax and other things like that that came in dollar now raises the something. I'm a tax, I audit tax too, so by way of that, I have enough knowledge about that. But that is not the question. But what we are saying is this: the government should ensure that there is consequences for every law broken. And when people see that there is serious consequences for whatever you do, people will take caution. Okay. People will no more be looking at personal interest alone. They will say, oh, even if I get a personal interest, I got the money and I go to jail. Of what use if I can't use it? So it is better we have consequences.
So when people do the crime
they should be punished.
They should be aware that they are going to do the time.
Exactly.
All right, Prof, let's have your final thought on this as we round up our discussion. Exactly what you think should happen moving forward.
After Brazil. But when you look, you see, corruption appears in every country. What happens, the difference is that when they catch you, let them not catch you. If they catch you in the UK or in America, they will shred you like vegetables. But here, if they catch you, they celebrate you. That's the difference. So we have a wonderful fiscal law, but when you come to where are the penalties for the offenses, you don't find them there. But now the revision of the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Act of 2025 has brought in penalties, 1 million, 10 million. Yeah, you're going to see compliance. But the one on the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, we've been battling for the last 4 or 5 years to get the Senate to pass it, so that at least you can have those infractions and the consequences for those, 1 year imprisonment and the fine of 1 million. Have that. If you don't have that, people just tell you that snakes swallow the money, all kinds of stories, and then that's the end of it. You can catch them, but you won't have the law to support your prosecution. And then, in fact, the process is that you go and write your report, you visit all the MD, write your report, send it to Attorney General, and they will just put it on the shelf. And then, no prosecutorial life, no action. Even the other speaker has just said it. That's actually the crux of the matter. What do you do when they are caught?
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much, Professor Ken Ife. He is a developmental economist and a microeconomics analyst. Thank you for your time. Thank you for devoting time to explaining this Grey List and the impact of the delisting for Nigeria and Nigerians. Thank you. And Dr. David Haruvo is a financial policy analyst, an economist, and a forensic auditor. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, Dr. Joel Haruna. Dr. Haruna is a financial expert and economist too. Thank you for your time, for coming on the program. That's our program for today. Please join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. Bye for now.